pulling over. Life. As I sit here and try and get some of these thoughts and feelings that are swirling around in my head and in my heart, I am very aware of how unpredictable life is, especially when you start to live it openly and honestly. 2025 has been a year of growth, pain, and it is the year that I found my voice. I began to speak my truth, and I learned that love can be conditional. I have experienced this not only in my personal life, but also in my beloved career, as I accept that it no longer provides the joy it once did. The current reality is there's no real change on the horizon. So here I am, at a crossroads. And in many ways, I am stuck, frozen, unable to take a step or pivot or even make a choice. It's starting to impact my sleep, my emotions, and in some ways, it feels like my sanity. It amazes me that I can still spin in this deep self-doubt, even with the strides that I have made in therapy and healing. How quickly a person can revert back to the old ways of doing things. Perhaps I'm getting a little bit ahead of myself. It is probably best to provide some context and a little bit of reference. To start, it's important to share my career as an educator for over 25 years. It is a vocation for me, my dharma. Receiving my Bachelor of Fine Arts degree in 1996 and my Bachelor of Education in 2009 were the first real validations or proof that I was smart and intelligent enough to complete a degree. Although I still struggled academically in some of the required courses, I was soaring and succeeding in the courses where I was able to write or present my work and my learning. It was during this time that I learned quite a bit about my learning style and my struggles. But at this time, I still viewed these as character flaws, something to hide. It always made me feel like on some level I was always cheating when I found or used a strategy to get around what I now know was a learning challenge or disability. As a member of the lost generation, my journey and experiences in school were not all that positive, and I left school with the core belief that I truly wasn't capable of learning, that I wasn't smart. This is complicated and twisted truth that I have believed about myself for a very long time. Although it was actually in college and university that I started to have some academic success, as I was able to study topics and subjects that interested me, or where the assessment provided opportunities for me to show my learning by writing or a verbal response. I had also discovered some dopamine-producing behaviors, not very healthy but effective, that supported my learning. However I got there, in 1999, with 2 bachelor degrees, I was hired to start a drama program at the newly built high school, and honestly, it was the perfect job for me. I earned an Edwin Parr first-year teacher nomination for my district, and I was off and running. Over the years, my ability to create relationships and trust with students brought the opportunity to move from my teacher role to school counselor. I took my master's degree, again relying on my tips and tricks, a lot of them unhealthy, to get through. I spent a few years exploring other leadership roles, vice principal, principal, district leads, curriculum leads. And in 2017, my life changed. It took a turn. I hit my rock bottom. But this is a story for another time, but it is important to mention so you understand my journey. For the past 8 years, I've been a school counselor, with a dash of drama on the side. It is important to share that 8 years ago, my role was very different than the one it is today. With all the cuts to public education in Alberta over the past few years, my counseling role has taken some big hits. I used to be able to see students one-on-one, on a fairly regular basis, so we could work on a specific area academically and or socially. I also created small groups tailored to support students with high anxiety or worries, divorce and grief, peer support and mentorship, ADHD and neurodivergence, friendship groups, girl code, yoga, mindfulness. Each year, a familiar pattern was occurring. My counseling time was going down while my requests for counseling services were going up. Each year, I would remove 2 or 3 groups from my roster as there simply wasn't enough counseling time to run small groups. And with our student enrollment on a huge incline, the need for these groups was growing at a rate I simply couldn't keep up with. It is important to mention that this is not because of my school district. I am fortunate to work for a district that still values counseling at the elementary level. Many have just removed it due to the lack of government funding. Over the past 2 years, not only has my counseling time become even more sparse, it has pretty much become a triage position. In that, we have a student who's struggling. The teacher asks for my support. I meet with the student, the teacher, the parent, give referrals for assessment, therapy, nutritionist, speech and language, occupational, etc., etc. It breaks my heart on so many levels. One, I know the majority of people will never follow through with all the referrals, as it can be very overwhelming and expensive. Two, the students then I often bond during this process, and I can see their disappointment when I have to tell them repeatedly that I cannot see them today, as my plate and my list is full. 3, I continue to see their struggles, and I have to accept that I simply cannot do more. But it kills me, as I have all these skills and trainings and everything that they need to be successful, but there's just no time in the workday to do this work. I still remain hopeful that change is coming, that this craziness in our overcrowded Alberta schools was a result of our fast immigration and our government has some sort of plan. I was naive, and it did cost me. For context, Alberta teachers have been without a contract for over a year now. Our public schools are bursting at the seams and we have huge class sizes. Over the past 5 years, we have lost massive amounts of funding in our early learning and complex needs. Class sizes are soaring in the 30s and 40s in elementary, even higher in the upper grades. Add English as a second language, ADHD, autism, etc., all with no real support. This is what we're putting in our classrooms. Our entire education system, in my opinion, is in a state of triage and emergency. In the spring of 2025, the Alberta Teachers Association, the ATA, voted over 90% against the government deal, as it did not address class sizes or even have a plan. The government tried to make this look like teachers were greedy and they focused on the measly 12% raise. There's a whole backstory to the raise and why there's mixed feelings about that number. But on a whole, I can say that for the most part, my colleagues, the biggest want, the biggest need was class size caps and support. And to make a long story short, the UCP government, after 3 weeks of strike, decided to take away the teachers' right to strike, rather than acknowledge these needs. We were forced back to work with no ability to fight back and to have a voice. In fact, we are under the threat of high fines if we take any job action. I'd be lying to you if I told you that I'm handling this well. I am a mess of emotions. I feel so stupid and naive that I actually thought our strike action would make a difference. I gave the UCP the benefit of the doubt. In my mind, addressing education and its current state was a no-brainer. In retrospect, I see that the UCP government never planned on working on this with us. They never planned on working with us. They had this in their back pocket the whole time. They are truly playing a game with people's livelihoods, with children's futures. Now teachers are out close to a month of pay and a loss of pensionable time and no real change. I've been back to work for 2 weeks now, and my heart is breaking at the harsh reality that I'm living. And I'm getting restless on what to do next. In September, I had hope. I saw the problems, the results of the lack of funding, the overcrowding, the lack of supports, but I had hope as we were preparing to fight for these issues to be addressed. I told myself it was just temporary, this chaos, that it would get better, and that I would get more time to be a counselor and coach again to help the students who need it the most. I now understand that this whole issue goes way deeper than just education. Healthcare is also facing similar problems, mostly due to the growing population that is crushing our public services. What I wasn't aware of is how shady and dark some of this stuff goes. The public has learned outrageous amounts the government is funding private schools, around 70% per student, as well as new buildings, as well as class size caps, and even UCP supporters are questioning the ethics of this. These schools also charge tuition, One of their biggest sales pitches is class size caps, and they can pick and choose which students can attend. It is truly one of those things that makes you go, This government wants to privatize education and healthcare, and has openly stated that in creative ways. I just don't think people, or at least I, didn't realize that this was happening on the broken back of the public system. There is an agenda to get Alberta to separate from Canada, to become the first state, which is also thrown a lot around during some of these discussions and arguments. To be honest, the more I learn, the worse I feel, and my hope and my positive attitude fades. I not only feel rejected by the government, but by this strike also revealed to me other relationships in my own life that need to be addressed. But I digress. That is another story for another day. As someone who has fought for her right to continue to work, due to my own health issues and battles, it is often recommended that I go on leave and live at a slower pace, taking better care of myself. I have taken a 20% pay cut to work a 4-day week. This allows me to reset or have a rest day, which has proven to help me be successful at work. For context, the modified work week is directly from my treatment plan for ADHD, anxiety, and complex PTSD. If you have knowledge about any of these conditions, you'll understand when I say I'm literally a super sensitive person who feels everything. This modification to my schedule definitely enhanced my ability to regulate my nervous system and be successful at work, until recently, especially the past couple of years. Returning to work, well, let's be honest, being forced back to work, stripped of my right to strike or take any kind of job action, brings back feelings of having no voice, of being told to hide and mask my truth. It is important to mention that I've been on a personal journey of healing, therapy, coaching to address a lifetime of living with undiagnosed ADHD, complex PTSD, and high masking. In my personal life, 2025 was the year I found my voice. I spoke my truth, found my courage, and the irony is not lost on me that the same year I had the overdue and difficult conversations, I built the boundaries, I stopped allowing people to tell me who or what I should think and feel, is the same year that my own government silenced me, took my voice away. And I believe that there is a lesson in everything, so I try to be open. However, for the last few days, I've been in a bit of a dark place, and the reality of my life and what is next is not overly inspiring. When we were forced back to work on October 29th, 2025, I did my best to be positive. I cried on my commute to work, overwhelmed with the reality that this is my job, my role, and if I cannot do it, then it is time to do some deep reflection. So I jumped back in. I ignored the comments, the looks, the thoughts. I pushed them deep down and focused on finding the joy. Although many teachers were canceling their Christmas concerts, opting for a spring show instead, I told my students we were moving forward. I'd offered every break I had to work with them on their roles, and I'm so proud of them and how they're stepping up. I don't know what our final production will look like, but I do know that it will be a labor of love, and I know the students will shine. The next month or so, I will focus on the concert, try to do the 8 to 9 weeks of work in 4.5, and it's bound to have some ups and downs for the students and for their super sensitive drama teacher. Unfortunately, I have to hyper-focus on this or it simply will not happen. The counseling work will get done when and if there's any time. This is my greatest fear when I allowed drama back to my teaching plate, that it would overshadow my true passion of helping students with their mental health and challengings. This is not an intentional shift. It is just happening as there's no funding for counseling. I have to accept that the role is what it is and stop hoping for change. The problem is when I do sit with this, accept this, something somewhere deep inside me stirs and creates this feeling of restlessness. I've brushed it off as anxiety or my ADHD sensitivities, this fake it till you feel it approach that has always worked for me in the past and helped me get over the hump, engage, eventually soar. But this time, it has an empty feeling to it, almost like I'm stuck, trapped in a rut, with no idea which way to go or what tools to use to free myself. I'm currently on my fall break from work, and in all honesty, I wish the break had been canceled, as it's going to require a ton of energy to get the students back on track. The 3 weeks leading up to the performance are going to be long and in some ways grueling, but we will get there and it will be what it will be. If the students don't have their lines memorized, they can hold their scripts. I'm lowering expectations to meet students where they are at and try to ensure that they all have a positive experience. The day before we went on break was a weird day for me. I was booked to speak in a breakout room for another district on ADHD in the classroom and the best ways that we can support these students. Dr. Brad Johnson was the keynote speaker, and I was super excited to hear him. This was booked before the ATA went on strike. The date was also our first staff meeting after the strike, and my administration felt I was more needed at my school to discuss the concert and share a little of my experience after attending the CADRA conference. When I first started Mrs. C and Me, I made a promise to myself that it would not distract me from my professional role. So I canceled the speaking gig, and I'm very grateful that I made that decision, as after 2 weeks of being back in the classroom, I wasn't feeling very inspired to speak to teachers who are already overworked, overwhelmed, and truly do not have the time or ability to see the individual needs of their neurodivergent students. It is one of those situations where we all know what the problem is, but the best solution or approach just isn't feasible. However, after attending the staff meeting, the message is becoming very clear to me. My counseling role, or at least the way I saw my role, is becoming irrelevant. As I listen to the new screening and reporting the government wants from the school so they can help us with complexities, all due by the end of November. At this point in time, I believe this is simply damage control. The UCP government is being held accountable for their choices, their promises, their shady and dishonest behaviors, and they're scrambling to try and look like they're addressing the mess that's in our public schools. I truly doubt we'll see any increase in support this year, but regardless of my personal opinions, educators have to do this reporting, and it's extremely time-sensitive. Except there's no room for me. I sat for that entire meeting, hearing and understanding the workload my colleagues had before them when we returned from the break. It made me realize that the best way I can support them is just simply not driving everyone crazy about this concert. This means accepting less and not letting the students see anything but how proud I am of them. Another aspect of my professional role becomes very clear. As I watched each slide of the PowerPoint go by with the list of tasks, assessments, reports, I realized there simply is no place for the school counselor. The role simply doesn't have the FTE to truly support this work, and it's simply losing its value in our education system, and you can't force it. However, by the end of the 2 weeks and this staff meeting, my heart, it's simply broken. And it's no one's fault. It's simply one of those jobs that's just becoming non-existent, not needed, at least not at such low funding levels. The elementary school counselor role has simply changed to kind of window dressing at some schools and triage at others. As someone who can retire with a partial pension in a couple years, quite a few people have just told me, put my head down, show up, do my best, lower my expectations, and retire as soon as I qualify. And this is most likely the approach I will take, as it is the safe route. But it doesn't excite me. It doesn't light me up inside. And I'm not sure how to do this job like a robot. I'm not sure I'm built that way. How would one explain this to the children without them feeling like it's a personal rejection? But at the same time, when they ask, beg, and see me in the hallway, and I tell them that I'm doing my best, and I see their disappointed little faces, I just want to cry. I've done enough work in therapy with emotional maturity and regulation to know the steps and tools I need to take to figure this out in a healthy way. But just like a disappointed child, I just want to throw a tantrum and scream and hit things. And at the end of the day, I cannot control my professional role. What is deemed as important and vital to me is not shared by the Alberta education system. The problem is, what step do I take next then? How do I remove my emotions from my job? As usual, my anxiety takes me to the worst case scenario and makes me want to curl into a ball and just not face it. Because to face it is to feel it in my world. The simple fact is, I either figure out a path to find the joy with the knowledge and acceptance that it's not going to get better, or I find a new path. The problem is both options excite and scare the hell out of me, and so I'm frozen. So the past 4 days I've reverted to unhealthy dopamine-seeking behaviors just to feel better, to feel hopeful. But it hasn't helped. And so today I'm taking the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 approach to my day. If you know, you know. It got me out of bed to this reflection, and now I've been writing for a couple of hours. I don't know if it helped or not, but it is better than feeling sorry for myself and the injustice of it all. I also have therapy this morning, and as well, it's time to jump back in with all this information, all the truths that I have learned this past year. Is it a coincidence that I feel like both my personal and professional life have hit a speed bump? I guess I just have to wait and see. But something tells me it's one of those pivotal moments in life that you either move forward with reinvention in mind, with hope for a brighter future, one that you can't see but you know is just around the bend, or you stay in your safe, familiar space, do what's expected of you. And in my case, this would mean staying in my current school because of the relationships I have with the community and just accept the limitations of my counseling role and find the joy in the little moments. It also means continuing to teach drama, which I have mixed feelings about at the elementary level, or I request a transfer to a junior high or senior high where they allocate more time for school counseling and I can just blend into the background. I truly don't know what approach is best for me, and I'm thankful that I have a couple of months to figure it out. As someone who has always loved her job and the gifts it brings the world, it breaks my heart to realize that this will simply not be the case for the last few years of my beloved career. If you're currently reading or listening to this reflection, then you are one of the amazing humans who have been encouraging me to share my story, and you're aware that I've been struggling to find the best and most consistent way to do this. Maybe some of this is imposter syndrome, as I still don't believe I'm worthy or special enough. Yet these beliefs do not stop this churning in my gut that speaks to me. Keep going. Keep showing up. The main reason for this inconsistency is that I put most of my spoons, my energy, into my job. I show up and put in a 12 to 14-hour day to try and stay relevant in my school community, to the profession, and in a way, I guess, to prove that my role is still important, still relevant. What I'm learning is that by continuing this cycle, I'm actually hurting myself because there's no amount of time and effort that's going to change funding or the allocated FTE. The role of the teacher has forever changed, and it will continue to change and evolve. And whether I like it or not, school counselors are simply not a high priority on an already spread thin budget. The strike and its outcome has made it crystal clear that change is not coming and that it's time for me to make decisions that are best for me. Because an unhappy team member can be like cancer to a school staff, directly impacting the children. If I cannot find joy under the current conditions, then I either need to call it a day and find a new path, whether it is accepting less and doing what I can each day, or simplifying my professional life by transferring to a grade level with more allocated time. At the end of the day, I have to make the decision that's best for me and my family. The problem is, I truly don't know which path to take. And each day I sit in the uncertainty of it. My anxiety revs up. I start to revert to unhealthy habits and routines I avoid. One of the first real lessons that I learned from therapy is you are your biggest problem and your biggest solution. Best solution. It just depends on where you are in your healing journey. Having ADHD doesn't help me at all in these situations because I struggle with identifying what all the feelings and ideas are. With each and every assessment or intake I complete, there's a theme. I share some part of my past, and then another, and then I hear, Heather, you should write a book. Or I could listen to you all day. You give me hope. These are not statements that I've heard throughout my life, except maybe by the people who love me best. I am blessed to have people in my life who are currently gently pushing me and not allowing me to quit, even when I miss a week or two, or if I'm inconsistent. However, as someone who wasn't properly diagnosed and treated for ADHD until the age of 49, my past is riddled with broken dreams and hobbies. And these amazing ADHD ideas that you spend a ton of money on, get all set up, dream the big dream, and then nothing. It's difficult to get past that belief that all of this, a side hustle, a business, writing, it's just more than another great idea. I have to also admit that this has been the year that I've seen the most success out of any other side hustle idea I've ever had. I've even made some money at it, which proves to me that there is value here, even if I don't always see it. And the most important thing I've learned so far in my journey is speaking and living my truth. This is the most difficult and rewarding part of my journey so far. And it doesn't matter if my words are only for me. I've been told by my therapist, ADHD coach, support group members, and some family and friends that for many people, writing their story is the way that they heal. They find clarity. I feel this on the deepest of levels. Writing has always been the one thing I could do. When I couldn't focus in school, I created stories in my head. I had notebook after notebook of short stories and mini novels. My friends at school would pass them around during class. It was truly how I got through school. Most teachers were happy to leave me alone, as long as I wasn't a problem, and so writing had been with me my whole life. I also have to hold myself accountable. When I first started here on Substack, I was loving every minute of it. For 6 weeks, I published a newsletter or reflection consistently, and I was seeing daily growth of 1 or 2 free subscribers and even getting a paid subscriber here and there. I enrolled in a course about how to grow on Substack and eagerly began to learn the platform. And then life happened. Well, a trigger happened. A family member who doesn't support the idea of me sharing or writing my story had a very big reaction to one of my posts, even suggested in a public comment that I was lying in my story, and who I could see I was hurting with my truth. Although I know I shouldn't allow other people the power to control me and what I feel and need to do, I absolutely hate to hurt and disappoint people. As a chronic people pleaser for 50 years, this is not an easy behavior to change. I allow the self-doubt and fear to creep in, and so I backed off. Until today. I'm showing up today for myself, here on Substack, school, by writing a post and not overthinking it, by attending a counseling appointment to help me process the emotions and see the clarity of what I should do next, by eating properly and taking supplements that support a calm mind and spirit, and most importantly, by taking, again, another first step, by beginning again, over and over as many times as necessary. But most of all, by admitting I'm struggling and unsure of the future, hopefully helping others to give themselves this gift as well. I constantly repeat in my head, in my writing, and in my conversations, everybody has a story, and we all do. And I believe healing and happiness are found in our truths. When we are real, authentic, and vulnerable with each other, true connection and healing happens. And it is beautiful. I'm going to sign off now. And I'm laughing a bit to myself because I titled this reflection, Pulling Over, which I used from the Mel Robbins podcast series, Reinvent Your Life. I have never felt more like I need to reinvent myself than I do at this moment. My personal relationships with my family and children have never been better. We're still healing and learning how to navigate and change family dysfunction and patterns, but awareness is a beautiful gift. I have learned some hard and difficult lessons from my family of origin, my OG, and my extended family about conditional love and just how far political and religious views can impact people's love and respect for you. I'm still learning how to navigate this and healing from the pain of this reality. But as much as it hurts, there is peace in knowing how people truly feel about you. Someday, I will share some of my husband's story during 2025, which includes some answers to some lifelong questions for him. New people have entered our lives, and I truly am just learning to love each and every one of them. I just connect with them. Signs are everywhere. However, at the same time that you are learning these difficult lessons, life has a way of bringing people together who lift each other up, who truly want to live in love and truth and happiness. I'm learning to let them and let me not turn bitter or angry from their conditional and transactional love. And my people are telling me to fly, to soar, to speak. And as one of my favorite humans on earth told me when my nerves were getting the best of me before a public interview, you need to do this. You have a lot to say, and so many people need to hear your words. And so I lean into this when I can't find the courage inside myself. I don't know what's ahead for me in my job, my life, my writing, or my business, but I do know that I can't go back to living life under other people's expectations. And it is okay to trust my gut, my inner compass. And it is okay to share my story because it comes from a place of hope and love. I hope that my story will inspire change and understanding around ADHD and complex PTSD and what it truly looks like at each level of the difference, disorder, and at the disability. And love for anyone who's quietly struggling. You are not alone. Reach out. I'm a DM away. I need to push all the negative comments and thoughts, the noise to the side and just jump in. show up each and every day for myself in ways that inspire me to find the joy and the laughter inside all the triggers, find the shimmers. To start and honor this promise to myself, I know I need to get ahead of my Substack by 4 to 6 weeks. This will allow for life to get in the way from time to time, but provide consistency and value to my readers. I need to set myself up for success, stop publishing impulsively, put a plan in place, stick with it for an extended period of time. 26. In 2025, I found my voice. I learned what boundaries I need in my relationships, and I explored my faults and my strengths. 2026 needs to be the year I quiet the noise. I sit in my truth. No blame or hate, just what it is. I need to show up for me and have faith that the next path will reveal itself, and I will know what to do when the time comes. And so I'm jumping back in. It is not perfect, and it never will be, but it is me, the good, the bad, and the beautiful. It is time to just start talking and sharing my thoughts and feelings, and if it's meant to help others, they'll find me. And if my writings and conversations are just my way of processing my life, healing, then it will be the greatest gift I give myself. And I can leave a legacy and my story for my children and grandchildren in hopes that they learn from my mistakes, and thrive in their own lives.